The city of Orion Spire rose high above the coast like a monument to human progress. Its towers gleamed in the sunlight, and the sky was filled with ships that carried goods and travelers between Earth and the colonies on distant worlds. Among those towers stood the home of Iran, a man known to every corner of the planet. He was one of the most successful inventors and businessmen of his age, a billionaire whose creations had changed the way people lived. Some admired him, some envied him, and many whispered stories about his hidden life. But one truth was clear. Aaron was a man apart. Living in a world few could imagine, Aaron's tower stretched higher than the clouds. Its walls were made of glass-like crystal that shimmered in the sun. Inside, machines worked quietly, servants moved swiftly, and every room was filled with the touch of modern design. Yet despite all the brilliance, there was an emptiness that even the grandest architecture could not hide. Aaron's home was quiet, too quiet, and in that silence lived his loneliness. On one bright morning, when the sky above Orion Spire was clear and blue, a message spread across the city. A transport ship from a distant star had landed at the central port. It carried workers from another world, beings who had come to offer their skills and services in return for shelter and opportunity on Earth. These arrivals were not soldiers or explorers. They were ordinary folk who wished for a chance to live among humans. Some were builders, some were engineers, some were caretakers, and some were helpers in homes. The people of Orion Spire gathered at the port to see them, curious to witness new faces from faraway stars. Aaron watched the news on a wide screen in his chamber. He had seen alien visitors before. Since the first contact decades ago, travel between Earth and other planets had become more common. Still, this ship was different. It carried not leaders or traders, but simple workers. Aaron leaned forward, his sharp eyes narrowing as he studied the crowd that stepped out of the transport. They looked not so different from humans, though their features were lighter, their movements more graceful, and their voices carried a faint echo as though each word was sung. Among them was Lyra. She stood at the edge of the group, holding her hands close to her chest, her head slightly bowed. Her skin shimmered faintly in the sun, and her eyes were a pale silver that seemed to reflect everything around her. She was small compared to the others, delicate in frame, and her presence was easy to overlook. As employers from across the city arrived to choose their workers, many passed by Lyra without a second glance. The port filled with noise. Names were called, agreements were made, and workers were led away to new lives. Builders were taken by companies eager for fast progress. Engineers were claimed by factories, and caretakers were chosen by families. Yet Lyra remained unchosen as hour after hour passed. Her people had told her that Earth would be different, that humans valued effort and loyalty. But here she was, standing alone, as rejection followed her like a shadow. Aaron rose from his chair and turned off the screen. Something about the scene had touched him, though he could not explain why. He had long lived with machines, with wealth, and with success, but he had also known what it meant to be dismissed, to be judged without being seen for what he truly was. His mind returned to the early days of his career, when others had laughed at his ideas and left him working in silence. The world had mocked him, but he had proved them wrong. Perhaps that was why he could not forget the sight of the small alien maid waiting alone while others were chosen. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the city in gold, Aaron's private craft descended at the port. His arrival caused whispers among the crowd. It was not every day that the great Aaron himself came to such a place. He stepped out in his dark coat, tall and quiet, his expression calm yet unreadable. His eyes moved across the workers, but his steps carried him toward the one figure still waiting in silence. Lyra lifted her head when his shadow fell upon her. Her silver eyes met his, and for a moment neither spoke. She expected him to pass, just as the others had. But instead Aaron asked, "Why are you still here?" Her voice was soft but steady as she answered, "No one wanted me. They say I am too fragile for work." Aaron studied her closely. She did look fragile, but there was something in her gaze, something steady and enduring. He had learned long ago that strength was not always in size or in appearance. Sometimes true strength hid behind quiet eyes. He said, "Do you wish to serve in a home, or do you seek another place?" Lyra hesitated, then replied, "I will go where I'm accepted. I only ask for the chance to prove my worth." Those words struck Aaron deeply. He nodded once, then turned to the official at the port. "I will take her," he said. The official's eyes widened. Many had expected Aaron to select a skilled engineer or a builder, not a simple maid. But no one questioned him. Aaron's choices were his own, and his word was final. Lyra followed him to his craft. She sat in silence, unsure of what awaited her. Her heart was heavy with both fear and hope. Would this man treat her as others had, dismissing her as unfit, or would he truly give her a chance? She looked out the window as the craft rose above the port, carrying her toward the shining towers of Orion's spire. The city stretched beneath her like a field of light, and for the first time since leaving her home world, she felt the faint stir of possibility. When they arrived at the tower, Lyra was guided inside. The halls were vast and gleaming, filled with soft light and the quiet hum of machines. Servants bowed as Aran passed, and Lyra walked behind him, her steps small and careful. Finally, they reached a chamber where the walls were tall windows looking out upon the night sky. Stars glittered in the distance, and the world below glowed with countless lights. Aaron turned to her. His voice was calm as he said, "This will be your home now. You will have duties, but you will not be judged before you begin. Do your work with honesty, and that is all I will ask." Lyra bowed her head. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, as she rested in a room far more beautiful than any she had known, Lyra thought of the long day behind her. She remembered the cold eyes that had passed her by, the rejection that had cut deep, and the sudden kindness of the man who had taken her in. She knew her journey was only beginning, but in her heart she carried a quiet promise. She would prove her worth, not only to Aaron but to herself. And so, in the highest tower of Orion's spire, a human billionaire and a rejected alien maid began a story that would soon change not only their own lives, but the fate of two worlds. The days that followed were quiet inside the towering home of Aaron. Lyra, the alien maid who had been rejected by so many, now moved softly through the vast halls of glass and steel. She polished the shining floors, dusted the machines that lined the walls, and prepared meals with steady hands. At first, she did only what was asked of her. She rose with the sun, carried out her duties without complaint, and ended each day in silence. The other servants often watched her with curiosity. Some whispered that she would not last long. She seemed too fragile for the heavy work of the mansion. Her frame was slight, her voice gentle, and her movements delicate. Yet to their surprise, she did not falter. Tasks that seemed tiring for others she completed with quiet endurance. When machines hummed too loud or lights flickered strangely, she paused, tilted her head as if listening to something invisible, and made small adjustments. Soon the air systems flowed more smoothly. The lights shone more evenly, and the mansion seemed calmer than before. Aaron noticed these changes. Though he rarely spoke much to his servants, he observed everything. He had built his fortune on noticing what others ignored. One evening, as he worked in his study high above the city, he called Lyra inside. "Come here," he said in his calm voice. She stepped forward, bowing slightly, unsure why she had been summoned. The walls around them glowed with the soft blue of data screens, each filled with shifting numbers, patterns, and designs of machines from Aaron's factories across the planet. Aaron pointed to one of the screens. "This system," he said, "has given my engineers trouble for months. The power grid is unstable. We repair it, yet the problem returns. You touched one of the mansion's panels 2 days ago, and it has worked better since then. Tell me, what did you do?" Lyra lowered her eyes, afraid she had overstepped. "I only felt the vibration. It was uneven, so I adjusted the flow." Aaron leaned closer, his interest sharp. "Felt the vibration? Explain." She hesitated, then spoke carefully. "My people can sense small changes in patterns. The walls, the air, the machines. When something is not in balance, I can hear it in the silence. It is not special among my kind, only simple sense. Others thought it was not useful." Aaron's mind turned quickly. What she called simple was, in truth, extraordinary. Human engineers needed hours of tests to find faults she could sense with a touch. He asked, "Could you do this with larger systems, not only in a home?" "I think so," Lyra answered softly. "But no one has asked me before." For the first time since her arrival, Aaron allowed a faint smile. He saw more than a maid before him. He saw a key to mysteries that had troubled his empire. The next morning, he tested her. He brought her to one of his smaller factories on the edge of the city. The great machines inside clattered and hissed, filling the air with the smell of oil and steam. Engineers in uniforms worked busily, checking panels and shouting numbers across the floor. When they saw Aaron enter, they straightened quickly, their eyes filled with both respect and fear. But when they noticed the alien maid walking quietly behind him, whispers spread. What was the billionaire doing with a servant here? Aaron ignored their stares. He led Lyra to a massive engine at the center of the hall. This machine fails every week, he said. We replace parts, yet it still breaks. I want you to look at it. The engineers were shocked. Sir, one protested. With respect, she is not trained for this. We have studied it for months. Aaron's voice was firm. Then let her try. Lyra stepped forward. She placed her hands gently on the machine's surface. She closed her eyes, her silver gaze hidden for a moment. The noise of the factory filled the air, but to her ears beneath the sound there was a rhythm. Uneven, broken, like a song out of tune. She moved along the machine, touching different points, listening with her whole being. Finally, she pointed to a small pipe near the base. Here, she said. The flow is blocked. It makes the other part strain too hard. If you change the path, the pressure will balance. The engineers looked at each other with disbelief. One bent down, opened the pipe, and gasped. She is right, he whispered. A blockage of hardened material had formed deep inside, hidden from all their instruments. They cleared it, adjusted the flow as Lyra suggested, and the machine roared back to life with smooth, steady rhythm. The entire hall fell silent. Aaron looked at his engineers, then at Lyra. You see, he said simply. From that day on, Lyra's place in Iran's world began to change. He invited her to more factories, more workshops, more centers of power. Each time she found faults that no human had noticed. Sometimes they were small, loose connections, uneven energy flows, or hidden cracks. Other times they were grave, deep flaws that could have caused disasters. Each time she solved a problem, Aaron's empire grew stronger, his fortune greater, and his trust in her deeper. Yet Lyra remained humble. She still cleaned the halls, prepared meals, and carried out her duties as before. But the servants now looked at her with new respect. Where they had once doubted her strength, they now whispered of her strange gift. Some were kind, some were jealous, but none could deny that the mansion felt more alive since she had arrived. One evening, as the sky turned red with the glow of sunset, Lyra stood on the balcony of her room, looking down at the lights of Orion's spire. She thought of her people, who had told her she was too fragile, too ordinary, without true value. Here, far from her home, she had begun to prove otherwise. A warmth filled her heart, not of pride, but of quiet purpose. Aaron joined her there, his tall figure outlined against the fading sun. He said little, as was his way, but his presence was strong. After a long silence, he spoke. Do you know why I chose you at the port? She shook her head. I do not understand. Others were stronger. Others had skills. I saw myself in you, he said. Long ago I was dismissed. People laughed at my ideas, said I would fail. They did not see what I could become. I thought perhaps you were the same. I was right. Lyra's silver eyes glistened, though she held them steady. Thank you, she whispered. Aaron looked out over the city, his voice firm and quiet. The world does not always see value where it truly lies, but I have learned to trust what others ignore. You are no longer only a maid here, Lyra. You are part of something greater. At that moment, she felt a shift deep within her. She was no longer the rejected alien waiting in silence at the port. She was no longer the fragile figure overlooked by her people. She was someone with purpose, someone who could change things. And though neither she nor Aaron could yet see the storms that would soon rise against them, both knew that their partnership had only begun, and that together, they would face challenges far greater than they had ever imagined. The months passed quickly after Lyra revealed her hidden gift. Aaron's factories ran smoother than ever before, his machines wasted less energy, and his workers reported fewer failures. Profits grew, and the name of Aaron spread across Earth and beyond. Other business leaders wondered what secret he had discovered, but he kept silent. Only a small group of trusted engineers knew of Lyra's ability, and even they did not understand its full depth. To most, she was still only a servant in Aaron's great mansion, but not all were pleased with Aaron's sudden rise. Rival corporations, jealous of his success, began to whisper in the shadows. They could not believe that one man's fortune could grow so quickly without hidden tricks. Some thought he had stolen alien technology. Others believed he had struck a secret deal with councils from distant stars. Plans of sabotage began to form, and soon Aaron's empire would be tested as never before. It started with small troubles. At first, shipments were delayed. Machines that had always worked smoothly began to fail again. Energy lines that had been stable grew unstable without warning. Aaron ordered investigations, but his teams found nothing. The engineers scratched their heads, confused by faults that seemed to vanish when checked. One evening, Aaron sat in his study, staring at the screens that showed his empire. Numbers scrolled past, reports filled the air with alerts, and warnings blinked in red. For the first time in years, doubt clouded his mind. Lyra entered quietly, carrying a tray with his evening meal. She placed it on the table without a word, but she noticed the shadows under his eyes and the tension in his shoulders. "You are troubled," she said softly. Aaron did not answer at once. He studied her silver eyes, which reflected the glow of the screens. At last he spoke. "Something is wrong. My rivals strike at me, but I cannot see how. Every test shows the systems are clean, yet they continue to fail. If this continues, my empire will crumble." Lyra looked at the screens. To her, the flow of numbers and signals was not only data, but a rhythm. She tilted her head, listening to the silent patterns. Slowly, she stepped closer and placed her hand against one of the panels. "There is something hidden," she said. "Not a natural fault. A design placed inside, like a seed buried deep." Aaron frowned. "You mean sabotage?" "Yes," she whispered. "Alien work. Not human." The word struck him like a blade. If true, this was no ordinary sabotage. It meant his enemies had gained help from beyond Earth. Aaron's jaw tightened. "Can you find it?" Lyra nodded. "I can feel where it hides. But it is dangerous. If I fail, the whole system may fall." Aaron stood tall and firm. "Then you will not fail. I trust you." The next day, Aaron took Lyra to his largest factory, the beating heart of his empire. The building stretched for miles, filled with endless lines of machines that forged, shaped, and built the tools of the modern world. When they entered, the air was thick with heat and the roar of engines. Workers bowed quickly at the sight of Aaron, but their eyes lingered on Lyra with doubt. Aaron wasted no words. "Show us," he told her. Lyra moved through the factory floor, her delicate hands brushing against steel walls, humming pipes and glowing panels. She closed her eyes, listening to the silent music of the machines. Then suddenly she stopped. Her hand rested against a small black panel no one had noticed before. "Here," she said, "the heart of the fault." An engineer hurried forward, scanning the panel with his tools. "Sir, it is only a control box." Nothing unusual, but Lyra shook her head. She pressed gently on the surface, and the faint shimmer of alien symbols appeared, hidden from human sight. Gasps filled the hall. "It is a parasite device," Lyra explained. "It draws energy in secret, slowly breaking the flow. If left alone, it will spread to other systems until the factory collapses." Aaron's eyes narrowed. "Remove it." The engineers hesitated. They had no knowledge of alien devices. But Lyra stepped forward. She placed her hands on the panel, her eyes glowing faintly silver. She breathed slowly, feeling the vibrations of the hidden machine. Then, with careful movements, she touched a sequence of points, pressing, releasing, listening. The alien symbols flickered, grew brighter, then vanished in silence. The control box opened with a hiss, revealing a small black crystal pulsing with dim light. Lyra lifted it carefully, her hands steady, and the factory roared with renewed strength. Machines that had faltered now ran with smooth rhythm. Lights brightened. The ground itself seemed to breathe easier. The workers stared in awe. Aaron took the crystal from Lyra's hands and raised it for all to see. "This is what they sent against us," he said, his voice carrying through the hall. "But it has failed. Because of her." From that day, Lyra was no longer seen as only a maid by those who worked in Aaron's empire. Whispers spread across the city of Orion Spire and beyond. The alien girl who had been rejected at the port had saved the factories of the greatest man on Earth. But the rivals did not stop. More sabotage followed. Hidden devices appeared in other factories, on ships, even in Aaron's mansion itself. Each time Lyra found them. Each time she dismantled the traps and restored balance. Her gift became the shield of Aaron's empire. Yet Aaron knew this was only the beginning. Whoever sent these devices had greater plans. They would not rest until he was ruined. He spent long nights in his study, the black crystal on his desk, thinking of the unseen enemy. One evening, as the city lights shone like stars below, he turned to Lyra. She stood at his side, her presence calm as always. "They will not stop," he said. My rivals have help from beyond Earth. If they succeed, they will control not only this city but perhaps all of humanity's future. Lyra lowered her eyes. I was cast out by my people for being weak, but now I see their hand in this. The devices come from them. They gave our secrets to your enemies. Aaron's gaze hardened. Then we will show them their mistake. They thought you worthless. They thought me blind. Together we will prove them wrong. The breakthrough had come. For the first time in history, human will and alien sense had joined as one. Not for conquest, not for war, but for survival and progress. Aaron no longer saw Lyra as a servant. She was his ally, his partner, and perhaps the most important being in his world. And though the future carried danger, in that moment he knew one truth with certainty. Humanity was not alone, and with the right companions, it would never be powerless again. The black crystal lay on Aaron's desk like a warning from the stars. Its surface was smooth, but faint lines of alien symbols ran across it, glowing with a cold silver light whenever touched. Aaron had kept it there since Lyra first pulled it from the factory walls. To him, it was not only proof of sabotage, but also a reminder that unseen hands were working against humanity's future. Weeks passed, and the tension in Orion Spire grew heavier. Rumors spread of alien involvement in Earth's industries. Leaders whispered in hidden rooms. Rival corporations, jealous of Aaron's strength, stirred unrest among councils and traders. The more Lyra exposed sabotage, the louder the whispers became. At last, the Alien Council itself sent a formal demand. They requested that Lyra be returned at once. The message arrived one evening as Aran stood on the balcony of his tower, the city glowing far below like a sea of light. His personal aide brought him the sealed communication, and Aaron read it in silence. The words were polite but firm. The council claimed Lyra had broken the laws of her people by revealing knowledge to humans. They declared that she belonged to them and that her actions had put fragile peace at risk. When Lyra heard, her silver eyes dimmed with sorrow. I knew this would come, she said softly. My people never wanted me to share what I could sense. They said it was too small, too useless, but now that it has meaning, they wish to take it back. Aaron studied her for a long time, the glow of the city reflected in his sharp eyes. At last he said, You are not their possession. You chose to serve here, and your choice is what gives you value. They may demand, but they cannot command me. Still, the challenge was greater than either had faced before. The Alien Council was powerful, and Earth's governments feared conflict with them. Aaron knew that if he openly refused, he might find not only rivals but also politicians turning against him. The following week, a gathering was held in Orion Spire's central hall, the great chamber where disputes between humans and aliens were judged. Leaders from across Earth attended, their suits bright under the shining lights. Alien envoys stood tall and graceful, their voices carrying music with every word. Cameras lined the walls, broadcasting the event to the entire planet. At the center of the hall, Aran and Lyra stood side by side. She wore a plain robe of soft gray, her silver eyes steady though her heart raced. Aaron stood firm, his dark coat draped over broad shoulders, his face calm but unyielding. The head of the Alien Council spoke first. His voice rang with authority. Aaron of Earth, you hold in your home one of our kind who has broken the trust of her people. She has given to you knowledge not meant for humans. By the laws of our stars, she must return with us. Release her and peace will remain. Refuse and you risk dividing our worlds. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some human leaders shifted uneasily, fearing the threat of broken peace. Aaron waited until the hall grew quiet again. Then he spoke in his deep, steady voice. You say she gave me knowledge, he said, his words echoing across the chamber. But what she gave me was loyalty. What she offered was her own choice. You cast her aside, rejected her as worthless. And yet she has saved lives, uncovered sabotage, and brought progress to both our peoples. If this is the act of breaking trust, then perhaps your laws are broken, not her. The alien envoys frowned. One of them raised his voice. You twist the truth. She carries secrets of her race. If you keep her, you hold power that is not yours. Aaron's eyes flashed. He stepped forward, his voice growing stronger. Power? Do you fear power in the hands of one who was once your servant? Do you fear what humans might achieve when they see value where you see nothing? Look around you. This hall is filled with leaders, human and alien alike. Yet none of them solved the crisis that struck my factories. None of them saw the hidden sabotage. It was her. The one you called fragile, The one you rejected. And I will not hand her over to be silenced. The hall erupted in voices, some angry, some inspired. Cameras caught every word, broadcasting them to the farthest colonies. Across Earth, people leaned forward to their screens, listening to the billionaire who dared defy alien councils. The head of the council raised his hand, and the noise fell. His tone was sharp now. You risk much, Aaron of Earth. Already your rivals speak against you. Already leaders grow uneasy. Think carefully. Is one maid worth the wrath of the stars? Aaron looked to Lyra. She stood silent, her silver eyes fixed on him, unsure of what he would say. He turned back to the council. His voice was steady and clear. She is not only a maid. She is proof that humanity can see value in what others throw away. She is proof that cooperation, not domination, brings progress. If you cannot see this, then it is not Earth that risks peace, but you who risk being left behind. Gasps filled the hall. No human had ever spoken so boldly to the alien council. The council members whispered among themselves. Their pride had been struck, yet their eyes betrayed unease. They had expected Aaron to surrender quietly, not to challenge them before the eyes of the world. At last the head envoy spoke again, his tone softer though his words carried warning. We will not forget this day. The choice you make binds you, for good or for ruin. May your faith in her be stronger than the storms you call upon yourself. With that, the alien envoys turned and left the chamber, their long robes trailing behind them like shadows. The hall remained silent for a long moment. Then voices rose once more, some praising Aaron's courage, others warning of the danger he had created. Human leaders argued among themselves. Some wished to support him, inspired by his defiance. Others feared the consequences of angering the alien council. Through it all, Aaron stood calm. Lyra, however, felt a storm of emotions. She had never imagined anyone would defend her so fiercely. Her people had always seen her as less. But this human billionaire had stood before the galaxy and declared her worth. Her heart swelled with both gratitude and fear. That evening, back in the quiet of the mansion, Lyra stood on the balcony, looking out at the stars. Aaron joined her, the faint hum of the city far below them. You should not have done it, she said softly. They will not forgive. Aaron's gaze was steady as he looked at the stars. Then let them come. Humanity has faced worse. And you, Lyra, are not a burden. You are the reason we will endure. She turned to him, her voice trembling. Why do you trust me so much? I'm only one, and I was nothing among my people. Aaron placed the black crystal on the railing between them. Its faint glow lit their faces. Do you see this? To some, it is only a weapon of sabotage. To me, it is proof of what was hidden. You are like this crystal, Lyra. To others, you are nothing. To me, you are the key to what comes next. I do not trust easily, but I trust what I see, and I have seen you. Her eyes glistened in the starlight, but she bowed her head in silence. The challenge had been made, and the world had seen it. Aaron and Lyra had stood against the alien council and declared a new path. The road ahead would be filled with danger, but also with possibility. And somewhere in the darkness of space, unseen forces stirred, preparing their next move against the partnership that threatened to change the balance of power forever. The day of the presentation arrived. The air in the capital city was heavy with excitement. Reporters filled the hall, scientists took their seats, and leaders from many nations gathered. Everyone had come to see what the human billionaire Adan would reveal to the world. Rumors had already spread that he had built something that could change the future of Earth. Some believed it was a weapon. Others thought it was a new kind of machine. Very few knew the truth. Mira stood behind the stage, nervous but calm at the same time. She wore a simple white dress, one that Adan had chosen for her. She still looked like a maid, but her eyes shined with pride. For the first time in her life, she was not hiding who she was. She was an alien, different from humans, but she was not weak. She had worked hard. She had given everything she could, and now she was part of something greater. Adan walked up to the stage wearing his dark suit. His steps were steady and his face showed no fear. The crowd became silent the moment he stood at the podium. Cameras turned toward him, broadcasting his image to millions across the planet. Today, Adan began, his voice strong and clear. We stand at the edge of a new age. Humanity has always been brave, always been bold, but we have also carried doubts and fears. We fear what is different. We fear what we cannot control. Yet progress does not come from fear. It comes from courage, from trust, and from unity. The audience leaned forward, curious. They expected him to reveal a grand invention, but his words were not about machines or power. They were about people. Adan raised his hand and the large screen behind him lit up. A picture of a shining reactor appeared. Its design was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Smooth arcs of silver metal curved around a glowing blue core, lines of alien symbols blended with human numbers. It looked alive, as if it breathed. "This is the Harmony Reactor," Adan continued. "It is a clean energy source that can power cities without harm to the air, water, or land. It is not human technology alone. It is not alien knowledge alone. It is both joined together." Gasps echoed in the hall. People whispered among themselves. They had expected a machine, but they had not expected alien knowledge to be part of it. Adan paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Then he said, "But I must tell you the truth. This creation is not mine. It belongs to someone who was rejected by her own people and doubted by mine. Someone who came here with nothing, only hope. Without her, there would be no Harmony Reactor." The hall grew tense. Everyone wondered who he was talking about. Adan turned toward the side of the stage. "Mira, please come here." Mira froze for a moment. She had not expected him to call her in front of the world. Her hands shook and her heart raced. She had always been in the background, always hidden. Now she had to step into the light. Slowly, she walked forward. Each step felt heavy, but she did not stop. When she reached Adan's side, the cameras focused on her. Millions of humans saw her alien features, her pale blue skin, her slender frame, her large, gentle eyes. She looked different, but she also looked humble and kind. Adan placed his hand on her shoulder. "This is Mira. She was once a maid in my home, but she is more than that. She is a mind of great vision, and she is the one who gave this world the knowledge we needed. She is the true creator of the Harmony Reactor." The hall exploded with noise. Some people clapped. Some shouted in disbelief. Some rose to their feet in shock. Reporters rushed to capture every moment. World leaders looked at each other, uncertain of what this meant. Mira stood silently, her eyes wide. She had never imagined this. She had thought Adan would present the machine as his own, because the world respected him, but instead he had chosen to share the honor with her, even though it would cause trouble for him. Adan raised his voice again, cutting through the noise. "For too long we have built walls between us and others. We think we rise higher by pushing others down. But humanity is greater when it lifts others up. We do not win by rejecting. We win by accepting. Mira was rejected by her own kind, but today I accept her as one of us, and I ask the world to do the same." The hall grew silent once more. His words carried weight, and even those who doubted him could not ignore them. Mira finally spoke. Her voice was soft but steady. "I came here with nothing. I only wanted to serve. I never thought I could create something so important. But Adan gave me a chance. He trusted me when no one else would. I am proud to stand here today, not as a maid, not as a stranger, but as a friend of humanity." Her words touched hearts. The audience began to clap, slowly at first, then stronger. The sound filled the hall. For the first time, Mira felt truly accepted. Outside the hall, the news spread across the globe. People watched the broadcast in their homes, in schools, in markets, in stations. They saw a billionaire who chose to share his greatest success with an alien maid. They saw an alien who stood not as an enemy, but as a partner. Some were shocked. Some resisted the idea, but many were inspired. Children pointed at the screen, saying they wanted to be like Mira. Workers smiled, saying maybe cooperation was stronger than pride. Leaders debated, but they could not deny the truth of what they had seen. In the days that followed, the Harmony Reactor became more than just a machine. It became a symbol. Nations that once argued began to talk. Scientists from different worlds began to work together. For the first time, humans and aliens saw each other not only as rivals or strangers, but as allies. Mira returned to Adan's mansion that evening, still overwhelmed. She asked him why he had done it. Adan looked at her with calm eyes. Because the world needs to see the truth. They need to see that greatness is not just in one man's name. It is in the courage to stand together. I am only human, Mira, but with you I felt humanity could reach the stars. She smiled, tears forming in her eyes. I was rejected before, but with you I found a place. He nodded. You gave Earth a gift, and Earth will never forget it. From that day on, Mira was no longer seen as a maid. She became a teacher, a guide, and a bridge between two worlds. Adan continued his work, but he was no longer alone. Together they showed that the future was not built by fear but by unity. The final moment of that day remained in history. The moment when a human billionaire stood before the world, placed an alien maid by his side and said she was the reason for hope. That act left everyone speechless, and in that silence humanity stepped into a new age.